Did Mike come back?
But he will.
Okay, he will. All right, if he comes back and. Yeah.
So after public comment, Matt asked if, since there were some new people here who he hasn't met, if we could do introductions or, okay. Or while we're waiting.
Sure.
Whenever, okay.
Okay, you want to do introductions? Let's see, who is here that Matt doesn't know?
Maybe April and
April
Carol.
and Carolyn. April, give us a quick who you are and why you're here.
Who am I? I've just been very involved in town politics in the library for many, many, many years, and I'm just curious to see how the process continues.
Thank you. Carolyn.
Hi, I am a retired librarian. I worked at the Jones for about 30 years, and I'm very interested to see our new library get going. This is so exciting, and I hope to be able to contribute with, if nothing else, with a couple of questions. So that's why I'm here.
Okay. Okay,
I'll email Mike and tell him.
okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes from previous meeting?
There are two sets, one from the April 4th.
Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion that we approve the April 4th.
Stephen?
Thank you for your review.
Okay, are there any changes, corrections?
There were 3 typos or missing spaces that were fixed. Good job.
I had a question. There's a section that says to here, bottom of
I
page.
took that out.
Okay. I think you have captured everything.
Yes.
That's fine.
Okay. So, hearing no others? Antonellis,
Antonellis, aye.
Donaldson, Foster, Poole,
Aye.
Jakes,
Aye.
Breckenbush,
Aye.
Paleo, aye. Second set of minutes were,
That
April
was
11th.
our brief
April
meeting.
11th.
with the
Yes.
meeting before the forum, and I.
and the forums,
Encapsulate
you did a,
the forum.
you did a great job.
Thank you.
Do I hear a motion to approve those?
I move.
You move?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any changes, corrections, or additions to those?
A couple minor typos and we found a few things.
I had one, midweek down, first page, public forum, second paragraph. It said we had 35 people present, and later on, we had 35 who voted yes, and some voted for something else. So I think the total was more.
There were 30, roughly, I tried to count the room while I was taking notes. There were roughly
At that moment.
in the room
In
and
the
the
room.
room and
Okay.
39 who participated remotely.
Remotely, and we counted
Divided
those.
to me.
Because later on, we had well more than 35 who voted.
But we added the votes from the 39. The
From the
online
remote.
people voted.
Becky said she counted 60 people in the
Yeah.
row.
In the room?
I think there were many more than 35. I would say 60 made sense to me, but this
Okay.
is probably after your count.
Yeah, I counted in the beginning before things got, is it? Well, that is easy to fix. I will say.
When we say 50, that's,
I'll say roughly 50 people.
okay.
Yeah, I'm saying that, sorry, I've got 5 documents up here.
You may.
Okay. Thanks, so the documents.
Okay,
Well,
All right.
approximately 50 people.
any other changes? Antonellis,
Antonellis, aye.
Domas,
Aye.
Foster, Poole,
Aye.
Jakes,
Aye.
Quackenbush, Paleo, aye. Let's just keep going with reviewing minutes. Sorry, folks. We're gonna review the minutes from the 2 previous design subcommittee
So March 15th, I sent out the minutes and, Stephen made a couple of comments and I collected them and sent them out again. So, and it would just be the three of us that vote on them. So is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I motion that we approve those minutes from the
Okay, all right, so I'll just, Antonella's aye.
down the side.
Okay, and then March 29th was the second set, and I sent those out and didn't get any corrections.
What was the date
So
on
March 20, the first was March 15th,
that?
and the second was March 29th. And so is there a motion to accept those
Move
minutes?
that we accept those minutes
Okay, so Antonella's aye.
down the side.
Okay, great, that concludes our business for the time being. Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Uh,
so, discussion about the public forum. Is there anything anyone would like to say about the public forum?
Forum itself.
The forum itself, yes.
I would. I thought it was run really well, and I appreciated the question and answer format. I thought that worked well. And just regarding the architect, I can see why you picked him. I thought he was really impressive and will pay attention to, I mean, I think that probably our needs are similar to things that he's already worked with before. And I thought it went really well.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Oh, since we have somebody here, Elaine, do we want to just go over our public comment policy? Because Weezy is here and Carolyn is here, and I don't think they've been at these meetings.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Okay, usually what we do is we have public comments only the first 10 minutes of our meeting. And after that, the meeting is basically our committee and our design folks, and our OPM, of course. And we leave public comments aside unless there's something burning that we can get to, and we kind of know those situations, so we will keep it at that for now. So one of the things that we received as public comments from the community, and I've been monitoring our email, and I've been getting them both in my own Gmail account, and I've been getting them in the library building committee, was people talking about what they liked and didn't like about the designs. And so Penny and I, thanks to Lauren, actually, helped us. We went on some field trips. We visited the Norwell Library on Saturday morning, and we spent over 2 hours there with Lauren. That was lovely. And each one of us separately went to the Webster Library today and toured that one. And so I put together, because I knew people would not be having seen them, I put together a very quick PowerPoint slideshow that I would like to show you all about the two libraries that we saw, so you can kind of see where what we were looking at. So I am going to share my screen. This one. And I'm going to. Okay. So these are the Norwell Public Library and the Gladys E. Kelly Public Library. And the Norwell Library was completed 2021, is that right?
Yeah.
And the Gladys E. Kelly Public Library was completed in 2018, and these are both Odenzello projects. So this is Norwell. That's Penny standing there in front of the building. She's standing from the parking lot side. And just to give you an idea of what the building looks like, from our perspective. The main entrance is right here, going in under this covered porch. You go into the main entrance. This is the meeting room here. This is mostly the adults area here, and there's a historical collections room here. This is where the circulation desk and everything are. Okay, so this is the walkway, the covered walkway going in, and this is the covered walkway, and there's Penny there. The book drop is here. This is an added doorway so that you could go into the meeting room without going through the main lobby, but otherwise you're walking towards the main lobby door. This is a, what did you call it, Lauren?
Airlock.
Airlock, thank you, airlock. So the main door, I'm coming in from the main door, and this is the door into the building. And airlock was we thought was a really good idea. This is the circulation desk, and you'd be walking in from here. Yes, a dead child is sitting there, and it goes with the building.
Sorry.
Could you? Thank you. But as you're walking into the building from this way, and this would be to your right, and then the meeting room, et cetera, is to your left.
Question,
Yes,
what is well, let's start on the outside. What are the building materials on the outside?
what are the building materials on that? That's, this is wood, but no,
It's
And
Alaskan yellow cedar with the weathering stain on it, and then the main body is slate shingle.
wait,
It's in a very wet environment, so we wanted to pick a material that would basically be maintenance free. It's 100-year material, slate shingle. Never have to paint it, never really don't have to replace it, except for maybe an occasional piece that has to be replaced. So those are the primary materials.
And what's the flooring material here in this?
This is actually a porcelain tile that it kind of simulates the look of a slate floor, but it's a porcelain tile floor.
Okay, okay.
so this is the circulation desk here. This is the new arrivals. You would go into the adult room, and the children's room is over towards this side. This is another, this is going into, let's see, oh, this is the outside. I got turned around. This is the outside there. That was the main door. And this is a small, what would you call this area, Matt?
It is a food-friendly area.
Okay.
It's not a
Food-friendly.
cafe because there's no food service, but it was intended that, people can sit there with food and coffee, and it's
Yep.
right outside the meeting room, and it's
Yep.
part of the area that's available off hours.
This is the bookstore, Friends Bookstore. This is the book drop room in the back, and then that's the meeting room. This is the meeting room.
How many people? Is it?
150? 110?
Yeah, I mean, you could squeeze more in there, but I think it was set up, it was designed to accommodate a minimum of 110 seats.
And this is where the screen pulls down. Here's the projector up there.
The ceiling, the sound of building.
It's
Yeah,
down,
there's an interesting feeling.
yeah.
Ceiling height?
Ceiling height varies. Ceiling height
Sometimes-
varies. It's a sloping ceiling. The high point is probably 18 feet.
It is as you can see, it's an arc. And then off to the side here is the.
It's
kitchen.
not an
It's not
arc.
an
That's the camera doing that. It's a slope, a gentle slope.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. there's the kitchen with our lovely models. It has a full oven, sink, microwave, lots of covered space, and a full refrigerator. And a librarian comes with it. The square footage is 21,000, is that right,
Yes,
Matt?
that's right.
This is the children's area. And this is, if you're standing at the circulation desk, it's off to the left, kind of behind the meeting room. Behind the meeting room are the bathrooms and then the children's area. So what I liked about it was definitely this area where it was wide enough, whoops, sorry, it was wide enough that kids could put a book or a coloring book or a project or even a computer there. These are very comfortable chairs and there's wall plugs for them. So this is the children's book area. And then this is off to the side. The children's book area that I just showed you was over here. And this is the bank of computers for the children to be at, tables and chairs. And back here is a workroom, kind of messy room, or also they do story hour in this room over here that they wall off, or they close off. It's closed off by doors. And then coming back, there's this lobby here, and this lobby, there is, if you're coming into the building, there's a pillar, right about here, the pillar is, and from that pillar, behind that pillar is a wall that, a pocket wall kind of thing that closes off, so everything else in the library is closed off. At night, the children's area, which is over here, has locked doors, and so it can be all locked off. And you can go to the meeting room. So here's the circulation desk, and behind the circulation desk is this area, which is a copy printer area, and these are self-checkout kiosks that we've never talked about even.
Oh, we're gonna have one though.
And
Yeah.
this is a makerspace room. It could be a meeting room. It's a room back on the south side of the building. I'm really bad with my orientations. And this is the teen room.
Elaine, can I quickly ask, we were unsure what the floor in the, what did they call it? The workshop and the children's program room. What is the floor in there?
Dominic, I think it's I think
Parquet,
it's
I believe.
marmoleum.
Yeah, it's a
Marmoleum, it doesn't look like marmoleum.
resilient floor.
It's a resilient floor. I don't
Yeah.
remember which product it is, but it's some type of resilient flooring.
Okay,
I think
It
it's
might not be
Tarket.
marmoleum, but it's something like that. Oh, it's Tarket.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's a similar kind of,
Mhm.
linoleum floor.
Yeah.
Tarcat.
Parquet is the name of the manufacturer.
Okay, thank you.
If we're talking about flooring, actually, we found that the flooring in the meeting room was rather subpar, and actually there were places that there were gouges out of it already after such a short. And that was kind of odd to see, but we can talk about that when we're starting into those details. In this teen room, they are allowed to eat. It's got a closed off door, so they're private, and it's quite a lovely room for teens. This is the workspace that I'm not gonna even show Mary Ann. This is, they actually have 8, they said 8 librarians on duty at all time.
I think their staff space was as big as our current library.
Absolutely. This is
They have 8 people on at the peak time, and then
Peak.
3 or 4 in the morning and in the evening.
there were, there was a children's librarian, there were quite a few. Yeah, quite a few librarians, but this is their kitchen and their own space. This is
Staff break room.
break room. This is a workroom. This is director's office, and there's also an assistant director's office. Plenty of space back there. Don't even look there. This is the adult reading room, and you can imagine you're coming in from the circulation area to this area, and that's way back there. So you'd have been coming in from back there to the adult room, and the adult room has the high ceilings, the exposed beam ceilings, and the circulation area does not. And so this is looking at it going north, and this is looking at it going towards the south. And I really like that we were trying to use Lauren as our measuring stick. She's really not good at, jumping up and being on top of her own head. So we couldn't quite tell how tall these ceilings were, but they were pretty tall. And this, I really liked this area with the built-in desks at the window height, and also having these breaks, as you can see back here, these breaks of the window area, breaking it up to put shelving in there. And there were people in there on Saturday morning. I mean, they were waiting to go in for the library to be open at 9 o'clock.
And the parking lot probably had 20 cars.
20 cars in there by the time we left, yeah. And these are the two loveliest spaces. This is a screened-in porch, so you can be out here and not worry about any mosquitoes. And this is an open-air porch. There were plenty of other pictures I took, but I didn't want to bore you with all of them. Now we're going to go to Webster. This is Webster's library. This was opened in 2018. Looks like very similar. This is the west side. And this is the north side.
Yeah, and Elaine, if I could, just a little bit of general information about them. So the Norwell Library is completely isolated from everything else in town. It's in the middle of a wetland. There are no other buildings in sight around it. You really feel like you're in the middle of the woods when you're there. Webster, on the other hand, is a very urban library. It's right downtown. It's sort of an anchor store to the main street of Webster. It's directly across from Town Hall. You can see that reflected in the windows on the right-hand photo, and it borders the town green. So it's a shared town green between Town Hall and the library. And the old library used to have the entrance kind of on the main street. Our design turned the entrance so that it faced that town green, and it became a more public, more visible entrance.
So the parking is back here, and this is the entrance on the side. So you would go to, from, this is coming up the sidewalk, that you would then go to, to this main entrance of the building. When you walk in the main entrance, this is where you come into. This is a lobby, and it's a 2-story building. And so this is the lobby from below, and this is the lobby from above. And this would be coming in the door, and down under this area is where the circulation desk is.
And what's the square footage of this one, Elaine?
This is also about 20,000.
Yeah.
40,000, okay. And what's the population of Webster? I'll look it up.
I think it's 11,000.
Okay.
And this is,
Okay.
this is similar. This is, once again, this is coming in the main entrance, and this is their new collections. And this back here is their workroom and their circulation desk. This is their meeting room. Their meeting room, they do not have, they do have an exit door, but they do not, they said they do not ever have programs when the library is not open. They, well, not that they do not, they rarely ever have programs when the library is not open. Oy, they were open 9 to 8 most days.
And they have different hours on the weekend, but they were open on the weekend as well.
Yes. This is the circulation desk. So they have, let's see, this is what you would face when you go in. This is the back of the circulation desk. And this is their office space back behind the circulation desk. And one of the things that they told me was, you have to make that circulation desk farther away from the wall because they've already damaged the wall, banging their chairs against it, unfortunately. This is their meeting room. You would come in from this side from the library. This is an exit door, but they rarely let people use the meeting room when the library is not open. And they do have what they call a pantry, and then has a kitchen area with it. This is their adult section. And this is the west side of the building, and so they have these permanently, the windows, and I'm not sure, I guess this is for birds, but this is on the windows.
The Frit pattern is actually solar control, as are the shades. So those shade panels are on tracks, so they slide along the length of the windows. And they
Thank you.
stack together, so they can be pushed fully to the side, or I forget how many of them there are along that side, but so if you're sitting at a table and it's a particularly difficult time of day, you can slide that panel over to provide shade at wherever you're sitting. And
They
that's
did
true
say that,
both on
that
this floor and the next floor.
yeah, in the spring and summer, they have a bit of a difficult time at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon because the sun is coming straight in to, especially the circulation desk from the front door area, and they end up wearing sunglasses. This is more of the adult area, and then upstairs, this is the periodicals room.
I don't have very many periodicals on the shelf there, do they?
No, they didn't, you know, oh, no.
We would,
They're inside. You
Yeah,
open
I-
these.
periodicals are dying at a rate such that we do not recommend a special space for periodicals, and we don't recommend special shelving for periodicals any longer.
Yeah.
This is the children's area. I love this. All these little bagged games that specifically state here, do not open them in the library. You should not be playing games in the library. You take them home to play them. And they have a lot of what's it called?
Mike Vinsky wrote an email to the,
Excuse me?
I think it was somebody who was not,
Okay, they have a lot of equipment and supplies. I'm missing my word.
Things.
Yes, library of things, thank you. And they were kind of said that they don't have enough room for all of their library of things. But this is the children's room upstairs. And this is, at the end of the children's room is a tweens room area. You have to be a certain age to be able to be in the tween area. And this is the teen area. Unfortunately, the teen area, they had to lock off and open the make it only between the children's area and the teens area. And they couldn't let teens just come and go as they please because they were having some issues with, they found some teens vaping and doing other things that they really didn't want them to be doing up there. So they can only be in the teen room when there is a librarian upstairs. And I think that's it. Yeah. So those are the two places that we saw.
Very nice.
So both of these libraries opened really recently. They're both brand new, basically. And so one thing with the Massachusetts Public Library Construction Program is that you design a library for your projected population 20 years out. So you design a library to grow into. And that's what we're doing. But our population, I forget what our design population in the building program is, but our population isn't projected to grow that much. But I would imagine that Webster being a more, metropolitan area that their population, I don't know what their design populations are. But so I saw a lot of kind of wide open spaces and a lot of flexibility and ability to grow in those plans.
Although they did say in Webster, I asked them about that wide open lobby, and it's a big open lobby, and it's open to all the way up to the ceiling, roof area there. And I asked them what they used it for, and their answer, I was talking to the assistant director, and he said basically nothing. He said they really don't use that space because it's people coming in, and so they can't really do programming in there, and they don't really do anything in there. And he was not part of the building project. He's come on since then, and his feeling was he would have preferred that they had more upstairs space than wide open lobby, because they just didn't use it, and they could have used the upstairs space. Lauren, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that Webster had a tragedy, and the woman who was the director died shortly after the building opened, very suddenly and unexpectedly. And so the people who are operating the building were not part of the planning process. And this project is a really good one. It's a little bit of an object lesson in that there are certain things that, for example, the decision to not use the meeting room after hours, that is an organizational culture decision. We always require that the meeting room be available for use after hours in our projects. And, the next director or the next board of trustees may feel differently about it, and their service model may change at that point. So Webster is a good example of where we didn't inject, I don't think, enough flexibility into the design, maybe. As you say, the lobby is an underused space possibly, and they have displays in there, but it is a very large space that has limited usefulness, I think, especially if they're not using the meeting room to its full capability, because that could be used as a pre-function space, or it can be used as part of the meeting suite, and it's not being used that way.
But there's no way in that building to close off
There is actually.
lobby.
Yeah.
Where was that?
You didn't see it because the grills are pocketed in the, I think actually there, Dominic, I don't remember if they're ceiling, they're roll down, or I think they're roll down from the ceiling.
No, they're not roll
They-
down. They
they
do
slide
slide. It's near
from
the
on
elevator.
So
Yeah.
both the
Yeah.
there's one in front of the circ desk, and
Right.
there's one as you walk in the building, there's one to the left that closes off adults. So the building was designed to allow off hours use of that meeting room. As Lauren said, they just choose to not use that functionality now, but all of the upstairs rooms are lockable, so there would be access to that kind of upper mezzanine, but you can't go beyond that. You would still have access to the main front entrance. There's also an access from parking that brings you into the lobby from the side. And so the idea was that you could still use both entrances, the parking lot entrance and the main kind of town green entrance into that lobby space, which, as Lauren said, was intended to serve as a pre-function space for events in that room, as well as, just kind of general circulation. It's also, this is a much more compact building. It's 20,000 square feet on a very tight site. Actually, it doesn't feel it because you've got the town green next to it, but it was actually pretty limited in its width. By the time you put the building down and have a driveway to get to parking, you ate up that site very quickly. And so we were trying to bring in as much natural light as we could, and we used that roof monitor as a way to bring in natural light. And there's a tremendous amount of really good quality indirect natural light in that building. So we have a daylight dimming system that dims the artificial lighting there. So, I mean, that's part of, I think, what drove the size of that, relative to the building, was creating a kind of openness that allowed that. It also, unlike Norwell, only has a staff, or at the time had a staff of 3. Lauren, I don't know if that's changed.
I think they
I
have
meant
more
for-
now, but it's not a big staff. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's the same size building as Norwell, 20,000 square feet. And so it needed to be designed in a way that was as open as possible on the inside, so that with very few staff, you could see most of the building from a couple of strategic locations inside. And so that drove a number of the decisions about, the scale of things and, how much transparency we had from one space to another. So little context.
The other thing that you mentioned, that was curious to me was that the teen room gets locked off because they were having behavioral issues. And so librarians and teens, it's a topic that we talk about quite a bit. And there are different philosophies, thank you, about serving teens. And so there's a philosophy that if teens don't behave properly, you sort of punish and limit. And then there's a philosophy of working with teens and building relationships with teens. And, so it seems, and with a staff of 4 in a building that big and a population of size, it's going to be hard to do, but it takes a certain,
Not all librarians should be working with communities.
right.
That's true.
And like some libraries charge late fees, but there's a new trend now where libraries aren't doing that. So and the same thing, when you mentioned like they're not using that lobby space, I think that again, there are philosophies among library staff about how spaces can be used and what it can be used for. I mean, I didn't see it in person, but I think there are flexible thinkers who are and creative and innovative
Yes.
thinkers, and there are people who just sort of do things the easy way, which might improve walking the team.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, unfortunately, the teen room
Yeah.
is upstairs and
Yeah.
away from the circulation
Mhm.
desk, so you really do, if
Right.
you're gonna monitor it,
Yeah.
you can't have a staff.
Right. I
That
think
was,
there's-
that was a fight that the MBLC lost, the location of that teen room. It's
Yeah,
not,
they felt very strongly about having their kids on the second floor. There have been some security issues in the town, in the previous library, and they wanted the kids to be as far away from the main entrance as they could get them. And They wanted the teens to go with them because the teens are supervised by the children's librarian. And so the teen sort of followed children in that location upstairs, and they're within sight of the children's librarian. But I guess they feel like the children's librarian isn't equipped to monitor both what's going on in the children's room and what's going on in the teen room.
Well, the
Well,
children's-
that librarian could monitor both if they were in their office, but how often is the children's librarian in their office, really? You know?
No, from the children's desk, you can look right into the teen room.
That's what I mean, at the
Yeah,
desk.
at the
How
desk.
often are they at the desk? Not
Right.
very often.
Yeah.
So, so I think, there could be like sort of attitude issues, and then it could be staffing issues. So maybe the staffing needs to grow to meet its building. And then I think teens aren't children. And so that, so it seems like the MBLC tried to, it sounds for like you tried to not have the teen room upstairs with the children and if you
Our recommendation is always to not have the teen room, to have the teen room as far away from the children's room as possible, because teens do not want to be associated with children in any way. And in some libraries, that's a battle that we lose because of staffing issues mostly.
right.
Norwell Library, they were far enough away and they were totally separate, and that teen room felt like a real
Right.
great place to hang out.
Yeah. And and I think with any design, there are trade-offs and decisions that are made, and you do the best you can, and both of those libraries are kind of at the beginning. So Webster opened 2 years before the world shut down, and they're probably just learning how to.
And it's a whole new staff too.
Right, and then they're learning how to exist in their building. And like I said to Lauren earlier today, it's a hard job. Librarianship is a hard job. So,
And no building is ever perfect. I want everybody to know right now that no
Yeah.
building is perfect,
Ours will.
ever.
Perfect. Stephen,
Matt, I have a question. What's the ceiling height of the meeting room in the Webster Library? Looks to be much lower than.
It's probably 10 feet. I'm guessing. It's been a number of years, so I don't remember. Dominic,
Yeah, I think it's around that, or 9.5. Yeah.
It was. I mean, it's very different, obviously, than the meeting room in Norwell, because it was a 2-story building and the room needed to be on the ground floor for obvious reasons, and it's a room of a certain size, and I think the meeting room in Norwell feels like a much more comfortable or pleasant room to be in. The Webster room is perfectly functional, but for a room of that size, it's probably 1,200 square feet. If my memory serves me, 1,100, 1,200. It would be nicer to have a taller ceiling in a room that big. But it's not uncomfortable.
so I guess we need to open this for discussion as to things that we've heard from the community. Everybody's been given access to the comments that have come in from the community. And Matt, you have too, and I assume Dominic, you've seen them.
I have not seen them.
well, I'll send them to you tomorrow, Lauren. I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought
Yeah.
you were, aren't you in the library building committee change?
I am very confused about my status on this committee. Sometimes I'm included and sometimes I'm not.
Sorry, I thought I had added you to the chain of people who just automatically get them.
I think what happened was early on, there were some emails to that email list, and they had nothing to do with the library building, and then Lauren said, okay, that doesn't seem like an email I should be on, so she just removed herself.
You remove
Yeah.
yourself. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
sorry, I should have
Okay.
sent them to you
Okay.
then.
So I'm gonna send you those comments right now, Lauren. I can't do it because I'm hosting the meeting on,
It's
I'll send them
okay.
to you after
It's
the meeting.
okay. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so would anybody like to start with any of the comments and discuss them? Matt, would you like to discuss any of the comments that you saw?
Not particularly. I mean, I don't feel like comments that come in need to be addressed one by one. You know, look, every community process is different in every town, and you're not going to get comments from every person. And so it's difficult to say that the comments are representative of community sentiment. You know, I got emailed 6 individual comments out of, 1,800 Shutesbury residents. So I don't know, is that representative or not? I don't know. I mean, I appreciate the comments, and I will certainly read them and take them into consideration, as we always do. I mean, we try to, be good listeners, and we rely on the committee to kind of help us gauge the sort of community sentiment, as well as community meetings. I felt like the community meeting last week was well attended, both personally and virtually. I feel like we got some good questions and some good comments, and I felt coming out of it that it was generally pretty positive, which was great. And that, I felt that made us feel like we were heading in a direction that was reasonable, as far as this community was concerned. And so I think that's a good place to be at, 2/3 of the way through schematic design. I don't know that we need to elevate every comment to the status of, discussion in a public forum. But if you want to do that, we can do that. It just seems like it is a little bit potentially skewed, I think, because it's not necessarily, I don't know how representative those comments are, of the.
Well, I guess I'll start with one of them. And the overriding one that I'm hearing the most, both in talking with people and in thinking about it, is the pitch of the roof. People are talking about how, well, I don't know how familiar you are with our elementary school, which is a pretty flat pitched roof. And we have had to go up there and shovel the roof because of the amount of snow that gets packed on there. And Dale, you were part of the building committee for a while there, and we've had trouble with a flat roof. And so people are very concerned about the pitch of the roofs that you have shown here. And truthfully, I was concerned seeing the ones in Norwell and Webster as to how flat those roofs are. And I'd like to know if there's any way that we could get a better pitch on those roofs.
Do we know
So-
what the pitch is?
Well, first off, the picture book, the school only had one flat roof at the gym,
Okay,
and because I've been up on that pretty roof. Many times too. And
And is
that
the
roof,
problem with the flat portion?
Jeff,
It's
can
a
you
flat-
speak up, please? We can't quite understand you.
also was, the design of that roof had concrete panel on top and insulation below, which is a system that doesn't exist in what's called a thermal roof. And it was prone to attracting stuff like trees, shrubs, and everything else was growing up there. So I don't think you can equate that roof with a new modern single ply roof membrane, which is what I assume these guys are going to propose for this.
okay,
So I don't really believe that's a problem. I think they're gonna provide us a single ply membrane that will have enough slope that we're gonna show the water.
Yeah, and to,
I
To
don't
be-
think you're gonna shed the snow, no.
to,
You
to
don't
be
think it'll
clear,
shed the snow?
look, so a couple of things. First of all, it's not a flat roof. It's a sloping roof. It's a low slope, but it's a sloping roof. Let's address the practical things first. Structural concerns, that we have zero structural concern about this roof. We've got one of the best engineers in the region working with structural engineers working with us. It's going to be designed to carry a pretty significant snow load, given that it's New England and it's Western Mass. It's also got solar panels anticipated on the roof. So that roof structure is going to be over-designed, really, to make sure that it is adequate to support the most sort of unforeseen condition that you can imagine. So there's that. I have absolutely no hesitation about the structural concern or anything like that. To Jeff's point, I have no idea what the construction of the elementary school is, but we have no concerns about the weight of snow on that roof. Second thing is we don't want the snow sliding off the roof. In fact, if it was a steeper pitch roof, I would be worried in this area because we would have significant amounts of snow on the roof that would then be sliding off, which is a hazard, frankly. It damages property, it's a hazard to people. We tend to try to keep snow on roofs and let the snow melt. So even at this low pitch, we will probably have snow rails, snow guards on that roof for that reason. We don't want the snow sliding off. We want it melting and then draining off the roof. The solar panels will warm up faster than a typical roof will. And so the snow on the solar panels will melt more quickly than it would on the roof membrane. At least that's according to our solar design consultant. So we don't have any practical concerns with the slope of the roof. The third component really is one of aesthetics, and that's a different issue, I guess. If the slope of the roof doesn't feel steep enough from an aesthetic standpoint, but from a practical standpoint, we have absolutely no concerns about how that roof will perform. In terms of construction, we're talking about heavy timber construction. It'll have a structural wood deck on top of the wood structure, the wood beam structure. That'll probably be a 3-inch thick tongue and groove wood deck with plywood on top of that. We'll probably have 5 to 6 inches of rigid insulation. And then most likely, as Jeff was saying, a single membrane, probably a TPO membrane on top of that, which is a thermal welded membrane that's got a good warranty. Norwell is a similar pitch, but it's less noticeable because the distance that pitch is traveling is much shorter. And I think when you see some of the images that we have to share with you tonight, we have a section through the building. When you look at the section, you can really register the slope of that roof. It's a low slope, but it does not look like a flat roof. Webster's a completely different situation. Webster is kind of a hybrid roof. It's a flat roof around the perimeter, but then there's a sloping roof up to that central clear story light. That is a welded TPO membrane on that roof as well. And so, but it's a completely different type of roof. It's a parapet condition with internal drains. It's like chalk and cheese between Webster and Norwell.
Chalk and cheese, okay.
I'm not at all.
You're not at
I'm
all
not
concerned?
concerned about it.
I'm not concerned about the structure. I do share the concern that a number of people have expressed about the look. Frankly, I don't like it, but
I have a
there
comment
you have it.
on that. I feel like there's this triangle we're living with. One piece of it is cost,
I know.
another is function, and another is the aesthetics. And for a number of reasons, I feel like we've been putting a premium on cost, as in keeping the cost down. And in order to do the kind of traditional look, it would cost us a lot more. I don't think we want to spend that. I feel like, I particularly like Matt's description of, well, okay, if we had it's called a gamble roof, we had a 2-pitch roof, we lose solar. One of our functions that we wanted was energy. And there again, you can solve all of that by spending a lot more money. And over again, we keep saying, we don't want to spend more than we have to. And for me, if that means,
Ugly?
Hmm?
Ugly?
I don't think it's ugly.
Yeah, I would just.
I don't think it's ugly. I love the timber frame.
I like the
Um,
timber frame.
I'm happy with that for the sake of keeping it to, I wish I remembered Kate, she had this saying of our goal. Something in the nature of the library that we can afford. I feel so strongly that cost is vital. I don't want to go to design requests that jack up the cost. And then we probably would disagree on the aesthetics.
Just to reframe this slightly, I've gone 3 libraries designed by this group. I've been to the West Shutesbury Library. I expect they had a lot of money. I get that. It's beautiful. The building is beautiful. The space inside is beautiful. The siting of the library is lovely. The landscaping is lovely. I thoroughly enjoyed visiting there. I went to Norwell. I think they had a lot of money too. It was an okay building. It was slick and modern. It wasn't warm and inviting. I felt like there was a lot of wasted space. I wouldn't want that library. And then I went to Webster, and man, I did not like that library. I walked up to it and I thought it was ugly. I went inside and it felt uninviting, and I don't want to end up with an uninviting, unwarm building. And there's got to be a way to make it affordable and functional and warm and inviting. And Matt, I talked to you about that last week, and that is my big concern. I want you to design a building that looks like it should be in Shutesbury and feels warm and inviting. And I hope you can afford it. On a budget. I do. I am worried about the money because I'm, busily working to raise all that extra money, and I get that, but I don't want to work this hard and end up with a building that makes me feel like the Webster Library.
See, Penny, I don't think that this building is going to look anything like Webster. And frankly, it's not going to look anything like Norwell either. It's a 5,000 square foot building, 6,000 square foot building. So
it's not the specifics. It's like a feel when you look at it and go inside. It wasn't the size. It was big open spaces, high ceilings, lots of glass. I didn't like it.
I don't think we're gonna get. So I think we're 20,000 square feet.
I know,
Yeah.
I understand.
And-
It's
right.
a feel, it's
Yeah.
a feel,
Right.
not a size.
I know, but 20,000 square feet, and then, I don't know what you call it when it's open to the upstairs. So, like you walk in the lobby in Webster, and I haven't been there, and then it's open to the upstairs, so there's, or
Atrium.
whatever that's called. Okay, and I think just the size of our building, it's gonna be a much different feeling. And then I just want to say what with some of the other people who haven't sent emails have been saying to me. So I've had people come in and they say that the priority for them is the energy efficiency, and that it's a modern way of powering a building, and so it's a new way of powering a building, and a building is going to look different. So a net zero energy building is going to look different than buildings than we've seen before. That's one thing. And then
Unless you have a lot of money.
unless you have a lot of money, right? And you know, so one person said it can be net zero, but it doesn't have to be net zero right away. And we can put some solar panels on the roof and then later we can put some on the ground. No, we can't, you know, and so what people have said to me, some of the younger people who snuck into the back of that meeting, and they said, what is gonna make it look like it belongs in Shutesbury is the net zero energy design feature. And so they're really excited about that and they're proud of that.
I think the other things that are gonna help this building is, and we're really early in design, they got a long way to go yet, but they're gonna be, we have color, which is going to make a big difference on making this building feel warmer. And they have an option of picking materials. That's why I was asking the question of what the materials on the outside of the building, but the materials they pick will have a lot to do with the building. So I think they have lots of opportunity yet to warm this building up. To, I think, deal with a lot of stuff you have.
And we'll have opportunities along the way
So this kind of goes along with what Mary Ann is saying. There was, I think, someone at the public forum and then someone who also sent an email, and they were talking about salt box design. And if I remember correctly, salt box design is kind of a form follows function. You have this one long sloping roof, and that would face the north or northwest to shield the house from the winter winds. Well, our building with this long sloping roof going from north to south is to have solar panels. So it's actually very similar in concept. It's a form follows function. And, you know, that's, you know, we want this net zero building. We want a highly efficient building. And that's what the design is actually providing. So I think, you know, the person who made that statement, I mean, if we did the salt box shape at the library, then really the long sloping roof should face the front to deflect the winter winds.
Well, but we could do it the other way. We could do it the other way.
Right.
We could make the long sloping roof going to the south and the short roof to the front so that it would satisfy people who are worried about the pitch, but also satisfy the look that's more of a New England look with a salt box.
I don't see a lot of
It
salt
looks like
box
a salt box.
shoots there.
With
What?
function,
I don't see a lot of salt boxes.
No. I have one.
I didn't say there weren't any, I just haven't seen them.
There are some.
But I don't think the salt box would work.
No, I'm not a fan of salt box
Okay,
roof.
I'm trying to play devil's advocate
Yeah.
here with everything that's coming in.
And for me, the biggest question about the roof is it structurally sound? And so first of all, they would not build a building that wasn't structurally sound, right? And Jeff wouldn't let us build a building that wasn't structurally
It will
sound.
be structurally sound, I have no concern. about
Okay.
that.
All right, okay, and the NBLC.
Go there and jump on the roof.
Okay, all right, okay, we're all gonna go up there and jump on the roof now. I don't know if you heard that.
Right.
Okay.
We're gonna have a first party on the roof.
So, and then I think I think we just are gonna have to work really hard with, again, with color and materials and,
Detailing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how and I think about people love walking into the current library because it's got the fur wainscoting on the walls and the fur ceiling, and it's just, you know, it's beautiful. And I mean, and I don't think we're gonna,
We're not gonna
do
take
that.
that.
We're not gonna take that with us, but we will have beautiful design features and we're gonna pick beautiful colors. And really, we're gonna be inside this building.
Right.
And I think it's gonna look different than any of us ever maybe imagined it would look, but you know, but it's gonna be there, and after a few months, we're gonna drive by, and a lot of people are just, I mean, by and large, people were really quite thrilled with it at the meeting. You know, we really haven't gotten a lot of feedback, and I think, so I think we need to think about, like, what are our priorities, and our priorities are energy efficiency and more than that, right? We want to have a net zero energy building. We want this to be a model for the possibility of net zero energy construction for everybody else to follow us. And then we want to build a building we can afford to build. So somebody complained about how it was a rectangle. And in the very beginning, Matt explained to us that a rectangle is the cheapest building you could build. So, you know, like the L shape, which has really grown on me, is gonna be more expensive to build. And we have worked for years to fund this building, and we're gonna still do that. And we are all being so incredibly generous and supportive, but we don't want to design a building we can't afford to build. Let's just build this library and make it the best it can be. And, you know, we'll have to be painting it ourselves, even though I don't think we're allowed to. But, you know, we're gonna go in at night and it's all gonna be done when the painters get
You
there.
can't say that, Mary Ann. With public money, you cannot say you're gonna paint it yourself. Sorry.
Oh, we still have to pay the painters? Oh, never mind. We'll just pay the painters. They do a better job than we do. But we'll make it beautiful, and it's just gonna, and we're gonna, Matt, you're gonna work with us about that wall of glazing on the end, and maybe tone it down a little bit, right?
Yeah,
Maybe
to Jeff's point, there's a long way to go here in terms of design. We've barely scratched the surface. We've got a lot of work ahead of us in terms of materiality, as Jeff said, in terms of figuring out the right balance of glazing versus solid wall. And there's a lot to do. But we feel like we are in a good place with the square footage kind of locking into where it needs to be. And we do have some stuff to talk about tonight. So I don't know. It would be great if we could have the committee vote to move ahead with a single option and then talk about some of the other updates that we have. Just I'm mindful of the time here. It's 8:15. And there will be plenty more time to get community feedback and look at design iterations. So I don't know if you guys feel like you're ready to make a decision, but that's kind of where we need you to be at this point.
Penny, I have just two questions. One have you talked to the solar consultant about what sort of square footage you need?
We're gonna give a consultant update in a little bit.
Okay. And then the other question is, one of the things that I have a difficult time with both options 1 and 2 is they're so narrow and so long. Is it possible to make them not quite so, let me say it differently, a little wider and a little shorter? Or is there a good reason that they're such long, narrow buildings?
They're long and narrow because it's like a train car. They are stacking up program that, you know, doesn't want to be sort of double wide. We don't want to have corridors back to rooms that are behind other rooms, you know, because the building got wider. So it's kind of, it is kind of what it is in terms of the program adjacencies that we need. You know, it's possible it could get a little bit wider and a little bit shorter, but it's not going to reduce length by 30% and increase width by 30%, if that's what you mean. It's not going to fundamentally change proportion, because then it'll just be too difficult to access those spaces. So I think there's a little bit of room there, and we've actually done you know, some in trying to get the square footage closer to our target. we have reduced the overall length and we've increased the width slightly. You know, for every foot of width that we increase, we have to reduce the length by 5 feet. You know, it's kind of that ratio in turn to keep the square footage where we need it to be. And at a certain point, the rooms start to not work very well as the building gets fatter. So it kind of is what it is. But you know, there are sort of fine-tune incremental changes we can make, and we've been doing that.
I think that these are basic elemental plans that we need to determine if we can afford this basic plan B as a starter. You know, where can we afford this plan as basic as it is? And I think that that's really where we need to start, is with something, you know, simple like the rectangular plan that we can cost out and know where to go.
Can I ask one question before that? I'm looking at your PowerPoint presentation and the options, and option 3 has a net square footage of 4,705 and the gross square footage of 6,219, which is, it's got a net square footage that is larger than option 2, but a gross square footage that is smaller than option 2. So would that mean that
No,
it
the
is?
gross square footage is larger actually than option 2. Now the growth, we can get into the program, but the square footage of option 2 is 5,900 square feet.
Say that again?
We're at around 5,900 square feet for option 2.
For option 2 for the gross?
Yeah.
That's as of today. As we presented last week, that's the numbers you are looking at right now, right, Elaine?
Yeah, you're looking at last week.
I'm looking at last week's numbers, right?
Are there new numbers?
Yeah.
Yes.
We have revisions that if we can get into the material for tonight, we have revisions to the plan and square footages for option 2.
Okay.
So do you want us to vote first, Matt? Or do you want us to look at your, like, do you have revisions to option 2 and option 3?
No,
Or
we only have
no.
revisions to option 2. You know, since the last meeting, we have focused our effort on option 2, knowing that you guys haven't made a decision yet, but we also can't wait. You know, we do have a schedule that we need to try to stick to. And so I guess at a little bit of risk, we've moved ahead with consultants focusing on one scheme. And the work that we've done is applicable, I think, to all 3, but we've chosen to spend a little more time on that scheme, refining it to try to get the square footages tighter, not wanting to spend that time on all 3 schemes because we just don't have enough time to continue working on 3 schemes. So what we would like is to narrow things down, as we had talked about. We were hoping that we'd be at that point already. But we would like the committee to vote on a single preferred option that we can continue to refine through the rest of schematic design. And to Dale's point, put a schematic cost estimate together so we can see where we are.
So I'll make a motion that the committee put their support behind option 2. Second.
Any more discussion? Oh, we're ready to vote.
Antoinette's aye.
Elma's eye.
Foster, aye.
Aye. Pool, aye.
Abstain.
Molly? Jeff?
Aye.
Leo? Aye.
Terrific. Thank you. That seems so
All right,
much
just-
easier.
So can we take a bathroom break? So, can we take a bathroom break? We can't all, no, I want us all to take a bathroom break.
Oh, my God.
I don't want you to do anything while I'm out of the room.
5 minute break.
Kind of a control issue is that?
I don't think we missed anything. Okay. There's another bathroom upstairs.
All right, I am looking forward to, this all is gonna, what you guys are gonna show us.
Oh, that's much happier. I won't have anything to drink until I come next time. Oh, boy.
He'll be drinking here.
So Elaine,
Yes,
yeah, I just want to add that from the meeting last week, I was very impressed with the depth of the questions. And when I talked to some people, they said, well, you know, we've been working on this for 10 years. We know what we're talking about. We know what we're looking at. You know, so they were just felt, you know, great questions. Great comments.
thank you. People in this town have been thinking about this for years.
You know, they may have
So,
just seen the sketches and the renderings, you know, that night, but you know, they really had done their homework over the years and knew what they were looking for.
Yes,
I thought last Tuesday's meeting was pretty positive.
it was quite positive. It was a change from
The last
12 years ago.
Yeah, the last meeting. In that.
Don't you agree, Matt?
Did you get to the forum point last time?
Did I,
Did you have a forum last time? Yeah. I don't
did we have a forum last time? Yes, we had
Yeah.
a forum last time. Yes, yes. Yes, we had a forum and, it was a very contentious one. And I think the difference is that we have secured funding now. So we are building a library, whereas before we had not secured funding. And so we were looking at designs without having the solid fact that.
That's right, it was a very
Yeah.
different concept.
It was a different process. I would not recommend it.
Well, yeah, I mean, the library issue is much more vetted in town 10 years later than it was then. It
Yes,
was a new issue,
yeah,
2012, and it was an issue that a lot of people were not prepared to deal with.
Well, we raised $400,000.
Right, that's right.
As well as securing the
Yeah.
grant.
okay, we are ready. Mary Ann is back.
You have got anything?
There's no light in that bathroom out there, building committee members.
Haven't inspected the.
Send an email.
Okay. All right, thanks, everybody.
Okay, so Matt and Dominic, take it away.
Okay.
All right, I'll present screen. Hang on a sec.
Oh, you know what? We can get rid of this. There we go.
Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Great.
I better not.
In advance. Okay, so
Yeah.
so summary slide, we've made a decision for option 2. That's great. One thing that we thought might be helpful, and again, this is not, it's not meant to be final or anything, but Dominic, if you go to the next slide, this was the view that we shared, as you know, last week at the community meeting. And you know, we did this view consciously this way in this style because it's a diagram, really. It's at that stage of the project. It's not meant to be a photorealistic image. It gives a general sense of scale and distance from the street and form of the building, et cetera. So we have a draft of another version of this, which is the same thing, but a different style of view. And again, this is a diagram. This is not a finished design, but I wanted to put this building in the context a little bit better than that previous illustration does. You know, this puts it in a meadow, which, you know, right now that grass is all mowed. It's probably mowed multiple times a year. It shouldn't be, you know, it's there. I think they're mowing even into the wetland area. And so we've been talking with the landscape architect about, sorry.
Talk about mowing.
Yeah.
Matt, I'll just call you tomorrow and tell you about the mowing.
Okay. So the point of this image is trying to put this same, everything is the same about this as the last image. It's just trying to put it into context that is a little bit more real. And again, there's a lot to do here, a lot to design, but I think even changing the style of this image for us at least makes this feel more kind of nestled into the site. It doesn't feel so stark as the previous image does.
Right.
Still a lot of work to do, but I think there's some real promise here. The other thing is that this is such a small building and it's such a big site that, you know, I don't think it's going to feel imposing. I think it's going to feel intimate. It has a completely different scale than, frankly, any other library we will have done, including West Shutesbury, which is 3 times the size of this building. So I'll leave it at that, but that was just a little kind of preview of where we sort of see things going in terms of representation. We mentioned planning. We have spent a little bit of time since the last meeting, the community meeting, tightening up the plan. A couple of changes that I want to point out. Generally speaking, the organization is the same as what you've seen, with the exception of a change that we made to flip the study room and the bathroom, what we're calling the kind of staff and family bathroom. So we wanted to move that bathroom so it was next to the children's room, so it made more sense. Also move the door off of the public, the main kind of public lobby space. So, and we can, I mean, that can go either way, but that way it's more directly accessible by children and families. It's still available for staff if they need to use it, but it makes it more specifically aligned to the children's room. We've also then flipped the study room to the opposite side, so it's close to the adult room. It's right next to the adult room. Teens stayed where they are, directly across from the reception desk, circ desk. So there's, you know, good supervision and more regular supervision, you know, from the circ desk than like in Webster, you know, to the point that was made about, I think Lauren made the point that the children's librarian isn't typically at the children's librarian's desk. Whereas here, I think between the circ desk and the staff workroom, both have the potential to see what's happening in the teen room directly across the way. In order to move the study room to the adult side of the building next to the staff workroom, we move the director's office to the other side. Because the director's office is smaller than the study room was, we were able to increase the size of the book drop room, basically double the size of that, so that we now have a larger room that can provide some storage that previously wasn't available. So that will have a book drop, through wall book drop and book bins, but there's also room to store materials in there. So those are really the only plan changes, frankly, other than, as I mentioned before, a general tightening up of square footage. And we've listed the square footage individually here. I'm not going to go through them on this slide. Dominic, I think you have the program slide next, right? Yeah.
Can you
So-
go back? A functional question for you,
Sure.
Marianne. Could you explain to me why? Can you go back?
Can you go back? Okay.
Just functionally, why is the covered outdoor program area off the meeting room? What is the relationship there that I'm not getting?
So I could see
All right,
that.
can you repeat that louder? I could not understand that, sorry.
So what's the relationship between the meeting room and the covered outdoor program area?
Oh, okay.
So I can envision that programs could be happening both in, like a program could be inside and that people would be flowing to the outside, or that there could be some kind of programming happening that would utilize both of those spaces at the same time. During,
Both the meeting room and.
yes,
So
yeah.
what about people who are there for books and want to spend an hour
Well,
and
they
they want to
could,
use the,
right, they could sit there.
but they have to go
But
through
there's
the meeting room
also-
to get to it?
There's
Well, no, they get to it from the outside.
Chairs, just
Yeah.
like the lobby, where you might want to sit and read.
Or there'd be a walkway to it, so that they could just go.
Would it make more sense to have the covered outdoor program where the AV and storage is and being flipped onto that side so that it would be more access from the lobby, and have the AV and storage going to where the covered outdoor program area is?
We wouldn't be able, well, so then if you took the electrical, the ATS, the fire pump, and put all of that stuff down on the end, and then shifted the meeting room.
No, just the AV and the storage there.
Yeah, well, then it's not enough, it's not sort of a big enough space. But if you took all of those utilitarian things and put them on the end, go ahead, Mom.
The covered outdoor program area is covered with the roof.
Yes,
That is in one continuous line.
Right.
Along the length of the building.
right.
But you put it over the other side, it needs more roof over there, and it's not just one.
Unless we put all of those functional rooms that aren't really rooms that the staff or people ever go in, put them on the end of the building, shift the meeting room
Up or down.
down, and then put the covered program area on the other side of it. But again, that's something we could discuss later, but I do think those two spaces are related. Yes.
I think adjacency is important.
Mhm.
Okay.
I
Well,
think
even though you can't see the covered outdoor program area from the work desk.
Right, right. Right. It's an outdoor space, so it wouldn't be a supervised space.
Okay.
And then if there were a program happening, that program would be staffed.
What's the square footage that you have in the program for that space?
Well, in the program, it's 700 square feet, and the meeting room is 700 square feet, and they have slightly lower square footages for those.
So there are two options. I mean, one is you could extend the roof a little further back, or also think of, just having uncut, the outdoor program area doesn't have to be totally covered. I mean, if it's not raining.
Right, right.
So just by having paving of some type.
Mhm. Yeah,
Thank you.
I would
I ask-
consider the reading garden also outdoor programmable space without a roof.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I would really love it if we could have overall dimensions of this building as it stands now. I find it very difficult to, I mean, the square footages for the individual spaces help, but I would like to know what size the building is at this point.
Yeah, the schematic drawings will have dimensions on them, Lauren. So you'll soon
Oh,
enough, you're
yeah.
gonna get a full set of, you're gonna get a schematic pricing set that has dimensioned and annotated plans.
Can you just tell us how long it is
It's-
and how wide it is?
Yeah, Dominic, do you know offhand? I don't.
Yeah, it's 170. The roof is 170 feet long, and
Okay,
I think it's around 45 feet, something like that, edge
and
to
that's
edge.
the roof, including the eaves.
That's full roof footprint. So the
Got it.
building footprint is actually less than that.
Thank you.
and
Um, I don't know who to ask this to, maybe Mary Ann, because you thought about this the most. I have felt like in all the libraries I visited, that the lobbies were overly big and not well used, and I'm wondering if you think we need 500 square feet for the lobby, or whether it could be better
Right.
used for something else.
So I'm a little concerned that the meeting room is smaller than I specified. And the meeting room at 700 feet pained me to specify it that small. And so if we could kind of shrink the lobby and add some room to the meeting room, I think that makes more sense. And over there, I see, is it 704 square feet for the reception browsing, and does that include the circulation desk area?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So, you know, and I, oh, okay. So anyway, that is something, I mean, I don't think a 500 square foot lobby is ginormous. It's bigger than we specified, but I do think, you know, some mobile shelving could go in there, some mobile seating could go in there. But if it could be condensed, so that we could have more room in the meeting room, that would be good.
Yeah, so a couple comments. We can certainly find a way to increase the size of the meeting room and not overly burden the overall square footage. Right now, that meeting room is drawn with well, it's 49 seats drawn now. I'm sure we could make it work for 50. So at 653, I think you could still get a 50-person occupancy in there comfortably. But to your point, I think we can increase that by 47 square feet to get it to the 700 that was in the program. Keep in mind that the lobby is, you know, at a certain point in a building like this, you need a certain amount of kind of circulation nexus, right? You have people coming in the front door, you have people going in and out of the meeting room, people going to and from the circ desk and, you know, to the bathrooms. And if you overlapped all of those circulation paths, there's not a whole lot left over. That's space, right? So that even though it's 511 square feet, it's not like that's just a 511 square foot room that isn't being used for anything. It's there because it needs to be there, because you have a lot of things happening in the middle of this building. The other thing that isn't shown here is book display, which we're assuming would be in the lobby and also in the kind of area, you know, near the circ desk. In addition to furniture, and we've got to get into that level of detail in terms of drawing those things and looking at clearances around them, make sure that we've got, you know, enough room. But I don't feel like that lobby is too big when you take those things into consideration.
Can you say what the reasoning behind the adult wing being shorter than the children's?
Well, there's less square footage required for the adults than there is for children. You know, overall, they're close to the same, but the adults have a study room, they have computers, and those are located elsewhere. And so the reading room itself is smaller on a square footage basis than children's.
Can we go
It
back
also-
to the?
It
Can we
also,
go
I
back to
think,
the plan?
yeah, it also, I think, helps articulate the front of the building. So I think that setback at the front has, I think it does a lot in terms of the overall reading of the scale of this building. If you were to square off that whole front, I think it would feel very different than it does as a result of that slight offset. Dominic, go back to the plan.
Yeah, okay, so can we do this? And so is the janitor's closet accessible after hours? It is. Can we stick the janitor's closet where the toilet next to the wall, next to the exterior wall is. And then, oh, wait a minute, let me think. All right, somehow I still want to make that opening to the meeting room larger. And we've got that wasted space in between the two bathrooms where you want to put a water fountain. So is there a way? It's wasted space. Okay.
Excuse me, I have to jump in here and
Yeah.
say that this kind of discussion belongs in the design subcommittee meeting,
Okay,
not in the
okay.
building committee meeting.
okay,
Thank you.
Yeah, we need to move on.
okay, all righty, okay.
But we all care so much.
I know. Anyway, you know I'm coming for those bathrooms, Matt, all right? So-
We'll talk about the bathrooms. We have, by code, we have to have a drinking fountain. And we need ways to get into the bathrooms that ideally aren't right off the public lobby. That's not a
All right.
great condition.
All right.
All right, moving on. Just a quick program summary. So this is comparing the current plan square footages to the program. We've reduced the building, as I said, so now the gross square footage is 5,918, which is down from 6,134 a week ago. You can see that we're off by about 63 square feet on the net area, which is that bottom left row. So in shrinking the building, we lost a little bit of net square footage. So the meeting room is a great example. If we increase the meeting room by 57 square feet to get it to 700, we're back where we need to be on the net assignable. Obviously, that makes the building bigger, so it's a trade-off, and we're going to continue to massage these numbers. Right now, at this level of schematic design, we are about as tight as it gets. That's not to say it won't continue to tighten up as we move on with design. So we feel good about this progress. I will point out that we're still showing the 5,428 gross for the program. That number came from the building cost estimate, the sort of conceptual cost estimate that was done. It's not based on plans. I'm not exactly sure where that number came from, but we actually don't think that that's a realistic number. And we've said this before. We think that that number, more realistically, relative to the net assignable and all of the things, all of those service areas that have to go on to that, have to be added to that number. We really think that that gross building area realistically is closer to 6,000. This is a building that has all of these things in the gray service category that are required, and those things would be the same size if this is a 5,000 square foot building or a 15,000 square foot building or a 20,000 square foot building. A number of them. Bathrooms aren't going to change size. The fire pump room isn't going to be smaller because it's a smaller building necessarily. So this building, given how small it is, it's unusually burdened by those elements, in other words. So I think as a result, what you might typically see for a grossing factor on a bigger building is a little bit more skewed in a building like this. And I think we're going to find that the building efficiency for this specific building is different than it is on a 20,000 square foot building. So I'll leave it at that. We've talked about that issue before, but this gives you a summary of where we are, and we feel like we're in pretty good shape. But obviously there's more to do to continue refining it. Dominic is going to update you on conversations that we've been having over the last week with our consultant team.
So we've met with all our consultants and we're heading towards the schematic design set pricing submission. That's at the end of the month. So landscape and civil are currently coordinating on a revised site plan. I don't have that in hand yet, but they're working feverishly on that currently. We met with our mechanical engineers and structural engineers as well. So first, structural. This plan is an RCP, which is a reflected ceiling plan. So it shows a plan of the ceiling. And so you can see here the column grid to hold the structure up. We have girders spanning across the width of the building. And then the length, you have roof beams that span all the way across, so they would be subdivided. So this is the glulam structural system that you can see here. And that's then paired with the building envelope and some of these ceiling conditions. So I just want to highlight the blue condition is a dropped ceiling. So this would be drywall, a lower ceiling condition over the kind of this central circulation area in the staff and associated rooms. And then here the threshold into the meeting room, bathrooms, storage rooms, and some of these mechanical spaces also would have dropped ceilings. So this plan really is to show where we would like to store some of the air handling units in these plenum spaces created by these dropped ceilings. And then you can see that those units would serve the open to ceiling conditions adjacent to that. So the entry lobby would be open to structure. That's how you're seeing this here. Included is the adults and children's open to structure, as well as the meeting room. So the intent would be that we could run some spiral ducts through the cavities that are created by the crisscrossing of structural elements. So the whole structural system is considering already what we would like to do with some of our mechanical systems. I've got a building section that will highlight that as well. So we'd like to tuck some of these mechanical ducts up inside the structural elements.
That would be true for sprinkler lines too, right? That, you know, one of the
Right.
challenges in a open structure building is how you run utilities in a considered way, so that they're not detracting from the overall look. And so we feel like the structural system is kind of giving us a great opportunity to be able to run the length of this building above the girders and in between the roof structure. So it's really kind of out of the most obvious view. So as an example, if you go to the Irving Library, you know, and you look at the sprinklers, all of the sprinklers are kind of hung down below the main beams, and we're trying to take a more considered approach to how those kinds of utilities are accounted for in the building. So
Sorry, I'm just trying to back up here. It seemed to flick through. I meant to go to this section as Matt was talking. I'm sorry. So here you can see a section of the building, and you can see how Matt was explaining that these spiral ducts and sprinkler pipes could feed in this gap, and the girders would create a virtual datum in this space. So just to orientate you, this is the entry vestibule lobby condition. Then here we have the circulation desk area with this plenum space above that would allow us to locate these air handling units to then supply, you know, the open spaces either side, and the same for the meeting room. We're working, I don't know if we want to go into this too, Matt. The sprinkler system has a water tank because you don't have municipal water, and we need a pump that needs to be served by a generator during an emergency. So there are a few different scenarios in how we serve this building with generators. The water tank for the fire protection system needs to have a pump that is operable during a power outage. So we know we need a generator for that. We are talking with our MEP, with our electrical engineer, on the different scenarios as far as, do we have just a generator for that specifically? It would mean that we could reduce the size of the ATS room, but we would need to still provide systems for a roll-up generator. So you kind of need a backup to the backup. You know, and the consideration is, do we have a generator just in that scenario, or do we also include a full building generator on site?
yeah, and we've got more work to do here, but I think it's going to come down to a cost decision. We know that the goal is to provide emergency power for the whole building. So then the question is, what's the most cost-effective way to do that? the code obligates us now, and this is a new thing, it obligates us to, no matter what approach we take to emergency power, we have to provide these exterior hookups for a roll-up generator. So we could have a permanent, dedicated generator that's sized to operate the entire building. We also still need to provide a way to hook up a roll-up generator. That's the way the code is written now. And so there's a cost to that. And conversely, we could take the sort of opposite approach and say, we're only going to provide a generator that provides backup power for the fire pump. That's the only thing that we have to provide backup power for. We know we want more than that, but that's the only thing we have to provide backup power for. If we reduce the size of the generator to just handle the fire pump, we can get rid of the ATS room. So we save square footage on the building. We have a smaller generator. We buy the panels for the roll-up generator. And so in the case of an outage, you have an arrangement with a provider that brings a roll-up generator, plugs it into your exterior panel, and it's sized to accommodate the full building. And that's something that we need to look into more in terms of who provides that service, what it costs, how easy it is to get that equipment there, how long it takes, the fact that you're in Shutesbury, you're not in, the Boston metro area. So there are a lot of factors here that we just don't know yet, and we need to explore them. But we're going to price out sort of 3 different scenarios for the generator, and we'll be able to make this decision after schematic design. But just so you know, those are kind of the variables. One other thing to mention about the water tank is that counterintuitively, we did a similar installation in West Tisbury. West Tisbury is a 15,000 square foot building. We needed enough capacity. I think it was 25,000 gallons for that building. You would think this building is a third the size, we'll need a third the size of water storage. But the way the code is written, we're finding from our fire protection engineer that the way the calculations work, we're still going to need like a 22,000 gallon tank. So again, we're a little bit more burdened in this project than we might be on a project of another size. We still have to provide 22,000 gallons roughly of water storage, even though it's only a 5,000 square foot building. So these are things that we're learning as we get into this. Sorry, Dominic.
No, thanks for that, Matt. So that was the coordination efforts really with mechanical and structural. We also met with our solar consultant, and we had a great discussion about different options about how we could mount solar on the roof. Obviously, we're looking to provide as much solar as we can. We need a 4-foot clearance at the roof's edge. And then there are some options about how they get mounted to the roof. We have 3 options here. You can see images that kind of support the different mounting strategies. Option 1 is a flush mounted photovoltaic system, which is just in line with the slope. Option 2 is ballasted. So it has each panel has its own slope. And option 3 is dual tilt, where you're able to kind of invert the slope of the panels from each other. So you can see the yield comparisons here. Option 1 and 3 are very similar. Option 1 is a little more labor intensive to service. You do need kind of walking paths between certain zones of these panels. But ultimately, if there was a panel that needed servicing that was kind of central to a zone, you need to remove the panels in front of it first. So this is a little bit more labor intensive, and there are more mechanical attachments for this system. When compared to option 2, the ballasted system, there are actually less mechanical attachments to the roof. And then servicing is actually improved because you are actually able to access most of these panels without having to remove others first. Option 3, that also reduced mechanical attachments. And what's nice about this tilted ballasted system is that you get more balanced production. So if these were to be orientated on our pitched roof, as the sun kind of comes up and goes along its path from east to west, you would get more balanced production across this. Also to note, these yields take into account the full year. And so that is, you know, accounting for a soiling loss of about 10% during the winter periods and about 2% loss for cloudy days or other factors like that. Pollen being another consideration. As far as maintenance, we don't need to get up there and clear snow, just to reiterate that. Nor do you need to get up there and clean them for, you know, on the high pollen seasons. So we have 3 images here where you can see you're a bit closer to the building, to our model at least, and we've modeled the 3 different mounting strategies. We just wanted to, you know, it gives you a sense of what it might look like as you get closer to the building. From Leverett Road, you don't really get a sense of them. But if you were to, you know, come around the building, you may get a sense of that if you were to see that.
Which system has the least amount of roof penetration?
Has the
dual tilt, I think, is the least. I think the dual
mechanical
tilt and ballast at both are reduced mechanical attachments, but I believe that our consultant said the dual tilt was his preference, partly because of the reduced attachments, but also because the energy production over the course of the day is more even. It's a more balanced production over the course of the day, whereas the other two, you get a really intense peak load and then it tapers off dramatically from there. So, you know, his preference of the 3 is option 3. I think there's still a little bit of work here to do, but I think the good news is that we are getting the yield that we need to get, and we don't have our energy model yet from our engineers, but we feel pretty good about these numbers in terms of being able to achieve net zero. So we'll confirm that with the energy model, but this is encouraging to us.
Are there differences in prices?
No, he said they're all about the same. I think that, you know, the greater mechanical attachments is more a question of how it interfaces with the roof. I mean, I think we would want to minimize the number of times that we're penetrating the roof membrane. So, you know, like our consultant, I think we would probably lean towards options 2 and 3 for that reason. So we're not expecting a decision. This is really just an update of progress. We are going to price these at a schematic level, and so we'll have some cost data as well to help make the decision. And we have to evaluate this relative to the energy model as well. So I think once we have kind of those 3 components, then we'll be in a position to make a recommendation.
And when you even do the energy model will be in a schematic package or not the BD?
It'll be, yes, we'll have a schematic energy model. It'll probably be happening concurrent with the cost estimate, but we'll have it by the end of schematic design.
I just wanted to present the schedule, but it's not showing up. Hang on, I'll see. I haven't got it up here.
Well, Dominic,
Basically, we are heading towards the 28th of this month, and that's when we'll submit for the pricing. After that, Matt, it'll be a 2-week pricing exercise, and from there we'll present the findings.
Right. Yeah, so we're looking at, so basically that's a little less than 2 weeks until our pricing set. We'll get an estimate, a schematic estimate by, say, mid-May, And at that point, we can review it and see where we are.
Can you explain what's gonna be in the pricing set? What kind of drawings and backup?
Yeah, so for architectural drawings, it'll be plans, sections, elevations, finish schedule, and some narrative. We'll have an outline spec as well. Well, actually, Dominic, you can relay what the consultants.
So for landscape, we're going to have a site plan. Civil will also use that as an underlay, so they'll also have a plan. And mechanical, all MEP will be narratives. Structural will be rolled into our plans as well. So we'll get some structural plans as well. Details will be included with some notation and narratives. So it's definitely high level, but there will be some supplemental plans and drawings along with the architectural.
Yeah, and we'll have a narrative from our solar consultant as well as some pricing information from him.
Lauren?
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to know for this schematic pricing exercise, are you going to be working with Neil and Roger on that? And the reason I ask is because it would be helpful to us to have the pricing broken down into eligible and ineligible cost. I don't know if that's, extra, but it would be very helpful for us.
Yeah, Lauren, we can have that conversation with our estimator. We're working with Pete Timothy, who you may know, we've worked with him for many years. And he's done, quite a few MBLC funded projects. So he's familiar with those terms, and we can talk to him up front about whether or not he can structure his estimate that way. If it's too cumbersome for him to do it in terms of how he does his numbers, we can do it after the fact.
If it's itemized well enough, we
Yeah.
can do it after the fact.
Yeah, it'll be a line item spec, fairly detailed,
Okay.
or not spec, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
a line item cost
Estimate.
estimate. We can provide a summary that gives you sort of trade cost, breaks it out by trade and eligibility. So it's easier to review.
Thank you.
But we'll work with Roger and Neil on that.
Any other questions?
So are we gonna meet again before you finalize these plans?
It would be good at a minimum, I think, Marianne, to meet with you to talk about the plans. We also want to talk about shelving and collections with you. So
And the MBLC needs to see them before they go out for the estimate.
yeah,
also.
so why don't we try to set that meeting up offline? But
Okay.
yes, ideally we are talking to you one more time before we're putting a final schematic package together.
Are we gonna
Okay.
have another design working group next week? We haven't really talked about that.
We could do that. I actually have in my calendar a meeting on the 25th. I don't know if that's a holdover from something else, but that could be. Oh wait, I have a
26th I have.
26th. Yes, 26th. Sorry. So we could plan to meet that day as a group.
So that would be the
Wednesday.
design. At noon,
Yeah.
okay.
Is that in person or virtual?
I think I'm gonna have to do that one virtually.
Okay. Thanks.
That next Wednesday? Okay.
Next week,
Okay.
yeah.
All
I
right,
mean, I think at that point, we'd all be either looking at computer screens or paper anyway.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, okay,
But Marianne, ideally, we're talking with you prior to that meeting.
okay. Um. Okay. All right, so send me an email, we can set up a meeting, okay?
Yeah.
Lauren, would you like me to send you a set with dimensions and things like that? Either end of the week or prior to that meeting?
Is this plan layout more or less what you're thinking you're gonna send for the estimate, or is Matt and Marianne, do you think you're going to change things before it's finalized?
I guess we'll have 2 days, Lauren, from that meeting
Mm.
till pricing. And Marianne, it'd be great to roll in whatever comes of next week's Wednesday's meeting into schematic. I think that's feasible.
Okay.
I think if
but
we meet with Marianne before the Wednesday meeting, though, I think it's possible that we'll come to the Wednesday meeting, depending on when we meet with you, Marianne. It's possible that we'll come to that Wednesday meeting with a slightly different version of the plans than what you saw today. And so I mean, we can send you, Lauren, what we have today.
That would be helpful. I don't think Dominic, giving me the overall dimensions is good enough for now. I don't need any more
Okay.
detailed dimensions than that.
No
If
problem.
I could have the presentation from tonight, that would be
Mhm.
great.
Excellent.
Right. So, okay, so we've got a design subcommittee on Wednesday, and then you're gonna send off the plans at the end of that week, and then this committee meets again the following Tuesday, this big. committee.
Right,
Okay.
so will we have more, we'll have information by then?
It'll probably take more than,
It'll take more than, will it take more than that?
2 weeks after we submit,
okay,
there's kind of a hold period. Matt, we can obviously continue developing things, but as far as, I'm not sure, Matt, how you want to handle those 2 weeks that we're pricing.
We can certainly meet during those 2 weeks, and we could review the pricing set with you at that point. But we're not going to have, it'll take us 2 weeks before we have any information to review for cost.
and is our OPM also going to do cost estimate?
no, so they're having an independent cost estimate done. And then our OPM will review that cost.
So we can get a one estimate.
Right, Roger? Yes,
That,
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
So my question then is, what would we be doing in our meeting
yeah, I don't think we have to have a meeting until the cost estimate.
until the cost estimate
Yeah.
is back?
Okay.
and we talk about that.
Okay,
So maybe we are meeting on the 16th or
Yeah, that's probably the soonest that we'd be able to meet with cost information. And that's, we'll have to make sure that our estimator is able to deliver the estimate by then. 2 weeks is typical for him.
Okay, so then, I don't want to, I know that, we had a long meeting tonight, I don't want to take people's time if there's nothing to do on May 2nd. So unless, we find that there's something that needs to be done, we're gonna cancel the May 2nd meeting. Okay? Okay. Thank you for all of this. Lotto 32 update.
we're gonna table that. There's nothing more.
Okay, is there any other committee liaison updates? Any other unanticipated business?
Oh, I have one on unanticipated business. So I have 2 estimates for doing the rest of the survey work. One is Harold Eaton, so Randy Iser for $4,000. It was, they're really hard to get. They're just really hard to get to pin down, but anyway, so finally today that came. And then the other is Heritage Surveyors, and they happen to be the surveyors that Hudson O'Neill is using, so they also design septic systems. So they're designing the septic system, and theirs is $6,000. So, and I had kind of given up on Randy Iser, but because I hadn't heard from him. And then today I got the quote, so I think we should just go with Randy Iser because it's $4,000 and save the $2,000.
50% difference.
Right, yeah, okay. I mean, it's gonna be more work for me, but we'll save the money, and they do fine work.
I'm sorry, what is this for?
This is, so we need more survey work done, we need topography and other things that architects need to. So they sent me a whole list. They want topography, they want trees of a certain diameter.
And normal stuff.
Normal architect stuff. And both firms are perfectly capable of doing it.
And he's gonna be able to present the information in the format they need.
Right, which is what CAD, is that what you need, Matt?
Are you
or
guys okay
Dominic?
with that?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, okay, alrighty, so, so then, so should we just go with?
Well, how about, what's his schedule?
Well, all right, so Randy Iser said they're scheduling 2 weeks out, and the others haven't said what their schedule is. If Matt, when do you have to have that survey information?
2 to 3 weeks.
I mean, it's at this point, it's not going to change our schematic set. So if it's 2 weeks or 4 weeks, at this point, it probably doesn't matter a whole lot. So
Okay,
I would go with whoever is less expensive and you have confidence in.
okay,
Schedule isn't really a concern anymore.
okay. And I mean, they didn't give me the list of what they wanted until, I don't know, it probably longer ago, but 2 weeks ago or so, maybe 3 weeks ago. So,
I'm more concerned that he gets the information to them. They need that information for DB.
right, oh, they'll have it for ED, yeah. Okay, all right, so I think we'll just go with our guys that have already been out there but I'll, and I'll just, it just means I'll be calling a lot, okay. Okay, great, yes, okay, all right.
Anything else people have? Do I hear a motion to adjourn at 9:17 PM?
I move we adjourn.
And Molly second it. Antonellis. Delmas.
Aye.
Foster. Poole.
Aye.
Jakes. Moss. Quackenbush.
Yeah.
Pueo, aye. Thank you all. And it was a long meeting. We have made a giant step forward.
Yeah, we're gonna be having time. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
All
you,
right,
everyone.
thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night, all.
Everybody.
I was home for 5 minutes before.